Echoes Act 3 is finally here, and we get new portions of the story, the new exotic mission with the new Choir of One exotic, but the main thing that I wanted to focus on are the new artifact perks. We get some very cool bonuses to auto rifles, and Shock and Awe is back in rotation, so I want to make an updated Fallen Sunstar arc build, but also apply it to Prismatic. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. Like I mentioned, the Fallen Sunstar is going to be the main focus of this build, bringing it all together. It is an exotic helmet, and with this perk, IONIC Conductor, IONIC traces you create move faster and grant you additional ability energy. Nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an IONIC trace. Now, I've done this build probably 2 or 3 times in the past and applied it to the Arc subclass, which makes it extremely good. You're creating a lot of IONIC traces, you're having very fast ability regen, but I wanted to take this and apply it to Prismatic because there is a way to create IONIC traces pretty easily. If you want the Arc build on top of the Prismatic build, I will have a dim link in the description for both of these build setups, so if you want to copy everything that I'm using, you can totally go for it. Now, under Prismatic, for our abilities, first up, I'm going with Phoenix Dive, but you could choose the Healing Rift or Empowering Rift if you would like. I just like Phoenix Dive for the quick heals for me and my teammates. For movement, I like Burst Glide, but you can use what you like. For the melee, we're going with Arcane Needle. Now, this does apply Unravel and a Darkness debuff to targets, but that's not the main reason we're going to be using it. It's because we get 3 melee charges, and that's going to be important when we talk about aspects. And for the grenade, we're going to be using the Storm Grenade. For aspects, probably the big one here is Feed the Void. So when you defeat a target with any ability, it's going to activate Devour. So whether you get a melee kill or a grenade kill, you'll get Devour. And as long as you have Devour, every kill you get is going to give you full health and also give you grenade energy back. And with Feed the Void, you also get additional benefits on top of that. For our second aspect, we're going with Lightning Surge. This is where the 3 Arcane Needle melees come into play, because with this, when you slide, you actually use your charge melee, blink forward, you call down lightning strikes, and you jolt those targets. It's very good for ad clear, and this ability is extremely strong. Now, I know what you're thinking. How are we going to create IONIC traces? Well, this is where Facet of Awakening kicks in. So rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates an elemental pickup of that matching damage type. That is a plus 10 to resilience. So with our arc abilities, the grenade and lightning surge, and our arc weapons, which we'll talk about weapons later, but we are mainly going to be using arc weapons, both of those things can create IONIC traces when we get rapid final blows, which is what this build excels at. For fragments, in the first 2 slots, we do have a couple of options, including Facet of Sacrifice. So when we have that light buff, ability final blows give us bonus darkness transcendence energy. It's a plus 10 to discipline. With Facet of Balance, we essentially have faster, melee and grenade regen as long as we get like rapid final blows with light and darkness damage. We also have some other options for these first 2 slots, including Facet of Solitude. Landing those rapid precision hits will emit a Severing Burst. It's a free darkness debuff right there. We also have Facet of Dominance, giving our arc grenades jolt. So that can be extremely helpful as well. We do have a couple options, but for these last 2 slots, on top of Facet of Awakening, I do highly recommend Facet of Protection. So while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, the effect is increased. It is a plus 10 to Strength. And then Facet of Purpose. This one is pretty important. So when you pick up an Orb of Power, it's going to give you a buff based on the super that you have equipped. And in this case, since we have Needle Storm, we are going to gain Woven Mail. Now, you could totally put on Song of Flame, but there's a reason I'm using Needle Storm, and that's because of the artifact perks. But before we talk about artifact perks, let's talk about what weapons I'm using, because it does lead into the new artifact perks. For this setup, I do like having the Call or some sort of strand special weapon in the kinetic slot. This thing is great because I have Enhanced Slice and Desperate Measures. Desperate Measures having that bonus damage as long as it get kills with the weapon and ability kills, it can put out some decent damage. But like I said, any strand special weapon will work here. In the heavy slot, I'm just using an Arc Heavy. I have this Hot Head Adept, but the main thing is our energy weapon, which is going to be the Centrifuge. Now, this auto rifle is the seasonal exotic from Season of the Deep, and it just comes with so many benefits. With its intrinsic trait, Overcharge Capacitor, sprinting, sliding, and firing the weapon builds up a temporary electrostatic charge, increasing range and reload speed. Final blows with high charge cause explosions, and maximum charge explosions blind targets. So not only are we, causing some AoE with just an auto rifle, we can also blind some targets. We have Corkscrew Rifling, a Pen and Mag with hand-laid stock, and then as trait, Regenerative Motion. Sprinting gradually reloads the weapon. That is a great feature on this. Since we're going to be amplified a lot, it's going to help. And speaking of that, with this catalyst, while amplified, this weapon gradually gains overcharge. So instead of having to sprint and shoot the weapon, as long as we're amplified, we can have max charge on this auto rifle pretty much the entire time. And leading into the artifact perks, not only do we have Overload Auto Rifle this season, but these two new ones. Number one, Sustained Fire. Continuously damaging combatants with an auto rifle grants you damage resistance, and this can stack up to 3 times. So as long as you deal damage with an auto rifle, you can have increased DR, which is absolutely insane. We've never seen this one before. And then also targeting auto loader. While you have an auto rifle equipped, defeating combatants reloads your equipped weapon and temporarily increases weapon damage, awards bonus progress when dealing final blows while surrounded. So on top of having increased DR from just shooting our auto rifle, pretty much every single auto rifle up until the end of the season is going to have intrinsic subsistence and rampage. Now for your other perks, I just have on Overcharge Armory for the bonus to all of the trait perks this season, and I have Winning Hand on as well, which gives me a bonus for the call, so that's pretty solid here. I'm also going to be using Threaded Blast, so when I destroy a tangle with a strand weapon, aka the call, it creates a larger and more damaging explosion. And what's pretty cool with that is that when I destroy that tangle, it can also proc Devour from Feed the Void. Now in the 4th column, we also have Radiant Orbs, so I have that Prismatic subclass equipped. When we pick up an Orb of Power, it's going to make us Radiant. And with Galvanic Armor, while we have that Prismatic subclass equipped, incoming damage from combatants is reduced while amplified. Now, I also have Shield Crush here, and this is why I am using the Strand Super, so I can get Woven Mail with Faceted Purpose, is that when I have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, my melee recharges faster and deals increased damage, and while I'm Amplified or Radiant, my Grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. So Shield Crush is a must-have here. Then, obviously, the returning Shock and Awe. This one's fantastic. So when we have Arc or Prismatic subclass equipped, Arc Final Blows while you are amplified summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. So it's basically a mini Cloud Strike shot that will jolt targets off of any arc kill, whether it's with our abilities or with our weapons. There's also another setup that I like, and that's having a Strand Primary. You know, I do like having the Eminence Submachine Gun because we do have Anti-Barrier Submachine Gun on the artifact perk, so this does come in handy for those champions. But if I did want to use an auto rifle, something like Rufus Fury, for example, I can take advantage of Sustained Fire and Targeted Auto Loading, plus Overload Auto Rifle as well, so this will come in handy as well. For my heavy weapon, I'm still using an Arc Heavy. I have the Hot Head here. Still love this thing. It's fantastic. I would put on a LMG if I needed to, but the main thing is our energy weapon again, and in this case, it is Delicate Tomb. Now, this exotic fusion came out during Season of the Plunder when Arc 3.0 came out, so it works really well with Fallen Sunstar. I made plenty of builds with this thing. In any event, let's talk about its perks. It's intrinsic. Trader's Vessel fires a wide horizontal spread when shot from the hip. Final blows with the weapon have a chance to generate ionic traces. Powerful foes and opposing guardians always generate ionic traces. So with Fallen Sunstar, we want ionic traces. This weapon can create them pretty easily. Next, we have Fluted Barrel, Liquid Coils, Short Action Stock, and then Tempest Cascade. Collecting Ionic Trace overcharges this weapon's next shot, jolting targets on hit. So that's a free jolt proc with that. And with the Catalyst, collecting Ionic Trace partially reloads the magazine from reserves. It's a decent fusion rifle, but the main thing with this is pairing it with Fallen Sunstar for those Ionic Traces. Before covering armor mods, let's talk about what stats to look for. First up, we talk about every video, try to have tier 10 100 resilience. It's going to give you a 30% damage reduction, and we definitely want that in PvE overall. Next, I would focus on discipline. Discipline is tied to how fast we can get that grenade back, and even though we do have Devour, I definitely want that grenade as much as possible. Next, I would focus on strength. That is tied to how fast we can get our melee back, and obviously, since we can kind of spam our 3 melees back to back, we want our melee back as quickly as possible as well. Those 3 are the big ones. For our helmet mods, I'm using Arc Siphon, so Rapid Arc Weapon Final Blows will create an Orb of Power. Then I also have Special Ammo Finder, so I can have special ammo, especially if I'm using the Call or if I'm using Delicate Tomb, so I do like that. If you didn't want to use this, you could do something like Hands On, so you get bonus super energy on melee kills. You can do Ashes the Asset, so bonus super energy on grenade kills, and then you have the 1 slot left over in this case for me, but I like this setup. On the gauntlets, I'm rocking double momentum transfer, so when I deal damage with my grenade, it's going to give me a reduction to my melee cooldown, and since we're going to have that grenade pretty often, I can basically have my melee up constantly as well. And then I'm also using heavy-handed, so you're powered, melee final blows will create orbs of power. On the chest piece, I'm rocking Arc Reserve, so I can have more ammo for my Arc special and heavy weapons, in particular the Hot Head, and if I decide to use Delicate Tomb, I can totally do that as well. And then for your resistance mods, you can use what you like, just cater it to whatever activity you're doing. For the boots here, I do like Invigoration, so when I pick up an Orb of Power, it's going to give me my melee back faster. I understand I do have Devour for survivability, but if you are doing tougher activities, you're having a problem surviving, definitely put on Recuperation, so you can get health back each time you pick up an Orb of Power. And then I'm rocking double Arc Weapon Surge, so your Arc weapons gain a small bonus to damage while you have any armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. Essentially, when you collect an Orb of Power, you'll gain an armor charge, With this build, you can have a maximum of 3 armor charges, and with any of these blue mods, it puts a timer on that armor charge. So at 1 armor charge, I have 10 seconds. At 3, I will have 30 seconds. So as long as I have 3 armor charges, I have 30 seconds of this bonus weapon damage. On the class item, I'm using time dilation, so my decaying armor charge has a longer duration. So that 10 seconds that I mentioned before actually gets bumped up to 15 seconds. So at 3 armor charges, I can have 45 seconds of that bonus weapon damage. Then I'm rocking double outreach, so it reduces my melee cooldown when I use my class ability. I understand there's a lot of builds for the Warlock around Prismatic, but if you're missing, that arc fantasy you want to apply to Prismatic, I found this is the best way, and it's still an extremely effective build overall. It's great for crowd control. You have great survivability options with Woven Mail and Devour. You can use a variety of weapons. You get great energy regen. You have a very strong super with Needle Storm, and then as long as you have a decent heavy, you can put out some great DPS. I think at the end of the day, I'm just happy that we got some decent artifact perks here so I can make a couple more builds before episode 2 comes out in a couple weeks. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Fallen Sunstar Prismatic Warlock build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like I mentioned before, I have both the Prismatic and Arc builds in the description in the form of dim links. So if you want to copy both those builds, test out yourself, come back to this video, and you're like, hey, David, I like using this weapon. Actually, I like using this fragment. This armor mob was really good. Come back. There are plenty of options with this build. There's plenty of things you can switch out that will still make it extremely effective. In any event, if you enjoyed watching, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on any other Final Shape builds I'm going to be dropping here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream here on YouTube and then also over on Twitch. Again, there's going to be the Salvation's Edge raid, there's going to be the new activity to get the exotic class items, the co-op mode, there's going to be plenty of stuff to do. So if you want to hop in for any of that, again, hop in the chat. And then also, if you want to be proactive, join my Discord. Again, people are going to be looking to play activities together, so hop on in. We're also talking about anime, tech, and plenty of other games as well. Lastly, if you want to help support the channel even more so I can continue making this content for you guys, you can always look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription. Again, you're going to get access to the emotes, the monthly badges, and the big thing, which is getting early access to all of my videos. So if you want to look into becoming a member, all you have to do is press the join button, next subscribe, and that'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!